What would happen if China invaded Taiwan? What you're seeing are training drills performed by the Chinese and Taiwanese militaries. Both sides are preparing for a conflict, which, if it took place, would likely include the US in some capacity.
The world's most dangerous weapon isn't nuclear. It's 2 nanometers wide. And in January 2026, it just redrew the geopolitical map. We are looking at a potential $10 trillion economic catastrophe, a collapse far worse than the 2008 crash and the COVID pandemic. Combined, this isn't a doomsday prediction, it is the cold reality of a single chip made on a small island protected by an invisible shield of pure silicon. Welcome to the new Cold War, and Taiwan holds the ultimate checkmate. For years, the silicon shield theory was just a whisper in Washington. But this month, the theory became a fact. TSMC has officially started mass production of 2 nanometer chips in their Baoshan and Kaohsiung fabs. While the US Arizona factory is still struggling to master older technology, Taiwan has kept the crown jewels at home. Think about that. The chips that power the future of AI, quantum computing, and military defense can only be born in Taiwan. They have made themselves untouchable. If they fall, the modern world stops. Navigating these geopolitical shifts is now the most critical skill for any global investor. If you value this level of deep dive analysis, consider subscribing. We track the intersection of capital and conflict in real time. To understand why this is critical, you have to look at the physics. A 2 nanometer transistor is smaller than a strand of DNA. At this scale, quantum tunneling becomes a nightmare. While American companies like Intel are fighting to stabilize their 18A process, TSMC has achieved yield rates in Baoshan that defy engineering logic. They are using extreme ultraviolet lithography in ways no other nation has mastered. This isn't just a better chip. It is a generational leap in computing power that will define who wins the AI race in the 2030s. And currently, that winner is exclusively Taiwan.
Chip giant TSMC says it's begun mass production of its most advanced 2 nanometer semiconductor process. The company announced the update on its website. It says the technology enables more efficient chips with more transistors and cements its position as head of the pack in the semiconductor industry. The 2 nanometer chips will be mainly made at TSMC's Fab 22 in Kaohsiung. It comes as the company pushes ahead with plans for advanced chip making at its facilities in Arizona and central Taiwan.
Despite being the birthplace of microchips in the 1950s and remaining a top chip design hub, the US now manufactures only 10% of the world's chips and none of the most advanced ones. When supply chain chaos collided with booming demand for consumer electronics during the pandemic, the resulting chip shortage exposed the big risks of relying on outsiders for such critical technology.
How important is it for supply to come from elsewhere than just Taiwan?
I think the pandemic is probably a good example that highlighted supply chain diversification requirements. And customers want us in the US, they want us in Japan, they want us in Europe.
The impact was immediate. On January 15, 2026, Washington and Taipei signed a historic $500 billion trade and investment deal. $500 billion. Let that sink in. Is the United States simply buying chips, or is it buying something far more precious, time? This deal isn't just economics, it is an insurance policy against the unthinkable. It sends a message to Beijing that America's wallet is now tied directly to Taiwan's survival. The Silicon Shield just got a $500 billion reinforcement. The military implications of this deal are terrifying. Pentagon war games for 2026 have shifted. We are no longer talking about a traditional D-Day style invasion. Analysts are now focused on the Hellscape strategy, a US plan to flood the Taiwan Strait with thousands of autonomous drones to buy time. But the new Baoshan fabs change the calculus. China knows that a kinetic war destroys the very fabs they want to capture. This makes a naval blockade, not an invasion, the most likely checkmate move. A blockade that would strangle the global tech supply line without firing a single missile at a chip factory. But where there is scarcity, there are shadows. Following the new U.S. export bans on NVIDIA's H200 chips this month, a black market has exploded across Asia. We are seeing chip mules smuggling silicon across borders like high-end narcotics. In 2026, an NVIDIA H200 is more stable than gold and more dangerous than a weapon. The narcos of silicon are real. It proves that nations will break any rule to secure the computing power they need to survive.
Tracking, though, entire server shipments is one thing, but monitoring individual chips is just far more complex. My sources say chip-level tracking would require embedded software capable of sending signals. So that would essentially be turning every single chip into a beacon. NVIDIA has strongly denied putting any backdoors in their chips after Chinese government concerns were raised just in the last week or so. And then U.S. Treasury Secretary Bessent assured investors this morning on Bloomberg that there were, quote, no national security concerns here with NVIDIA chips.
Let's break down that $10 trillion figure. It's not just tech stocks crashing. If TSMC stops shipping, assembly lines in Detroit, Stuttgart, and Tokyo halt within weeks. Apple, NVIDIA, and AMD lose 90% of their revenue overnight. The cloud servers that run the global banking system would face a hardware freeze. We aren't talking about a recession. We are talking about a total decoupling of the modern supply chain. The Great Depression would look like a mild correction compared to a world without Taiwanese silicon. So, will the silicon shield hold? As we move deeper into 2026, the stakes have never been higher. The mass production of 2-nanometer chips, the massive trade deal, and the desperate black market all point to one truth. Taiwan is the linchpin of the global economy. But shields can be broken. The question isn't if it will be tested, but when. I want to hear from the analysts in our community. Do you think the US is buying Taiwan's safety or just buying time for their own factories to catch up? Leave your thoughts below. I'll be responding to the best insights. The fate of the global economy hangs by a thread just 2 nanometers wide.